You know that warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you toss that plastic bottle into the recycling bin? Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but you've been lied to. For decades. What if I told you that less than 9% of all plastic ever produced has actually been recycled? What if I told you that the recycling symbol on your water bottle was designed by the oil industry to make you feel better about buying more plastic? I'm about to blow your mind with the truth about recycling. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at that blue bin the same way again. We're talking about one of the biggest cons in modern history. And somehow, we all fell for it. Today I'm revealing the shocking truth about what really happens to your recycling. First, I'm going to show you the real numbers behind recycling. And spoiler alert, they're absolutely shocking. We're talking about where your recycling actually ends up, and it's not where you think. Then, we're going back to the 1970s to uncover how the oil and plastic industries literally invented the recycling myth to keep selling us more stuff. This is some serious corporate conspiracy territory, and I've got the documents to prove it. After that, we're going global. I'll reveal how the United States has been shipping its recycling problems overseas for decades, creating environmental disasters in countries most Americans can't even find on a map. But here's where it gets really interesting. I'm also going to show you the few types of recycling that actually do work, and why the system is designed to make you think it's all the same. And finally, I'll give you the real solutions that nobody talks about, because they threaten billion-dollar industries. So buckle up, because we're about to take apart one of the biggest lies ever sold to the American public. Let's start with some numbers that'll make your head spin. Ready for this? Since the 1950s, humans have produced over 9 billion tons of plastic. That's billion with a B. To put that in perspective, that's like 1,800 Empire State Buildings worth of plastic. Now, guess how much of that has actually been recycled? Less than 9%. I'll say it again. Less than 9% of all plastic ever made has been recycled. Where's the other 91%? Well, 12% has been incinerated, and here's the kicker. 79% is sitting in landfills or scattered across our environment. But wait, you're thinking, that can't be right. I recycle every week. Yeah, so did I, so do millions of Americans. We're all dutifully washing out our yogurt containers and sorting our bottles, feeling like environmental heroes. Here's what's actually happening to your recycling. When you put that plastic bottle in your recycling bin, there's maybe a 20 to 30% chance it even makes it to a recycling facility. The rest? Straight to the landfill because it's contaminated, or the wrong type of plastic, or the market for that particular plastic crashed that week. And get this. Even if your bottle makes it to the facility, most plastic can only be recycled once, maybe twice, before it becomes completely unusable. It's called downcycling, not recycling. Your water bottle doesn't become another water bottle. It becomes a park bench or some carpet padding, and then it's done forever. Compare that to aluminum cans, which can be recycled infinitely without losing quality. But here's the thing. Aluminum recycling actually works because it's profitable. Plastic recycling? It's almost always a money-losing operation. I found this internal memo from a major plastic manufacturer from 1994. They knew recycling wasn't working. They literally wrote, "Recycling cannot be considered a permanent solid waste solution, as it merely prolongs the time until disposal." They knew. They've always known. And they kept promoting recycling anyway because it kept us buying their products guilt-free. But here's where this gets really wild. Remember that recycling symbol? The one with the 3 arrows in a triangle? Most people think it means the item is recyclable. Wrong. Those numbers inside the triangle? They're resin identification codes created by the plastics industry in 1988. They don't mean it's recyclable. They just tell you what type of plastic it is. Numbers 3 through 7? Good luck finding anywhere that'll actually recycle those. The oil industry literally designed a symbol to confuse you into thinking you were helping the environment while you kept buying their products. And it worked. Americans produce 35 million tons of plastic waste every year, and we've been convinced that recycling will solve the problem. Spoiler alert. It won't, it can't, and it was never designed to. Now I'm going to take you back to where this whole deception began, because this isn't an accident. This is one of the most successful corporate PR campaigns in history. Picture this. It's 1970. Environmental awareness is exploding. People are seeing rivers catching fire, smog choking cities, and plastic litter everywhere. The public is getting angry, and politicians are starting to talk about banning disposable packaging. The plastic and oil industries were panicking. So what did they do? They hired the same PR firms that had been working for the tobacco industry. I'm not kidding. The exact same companies that convinced people cigarettes were healthy were now tasked with saving plastic. In 1971, a group of major corporations, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, and others, created something called Keep America Beautiful. Sounds nice, right? Their first major campaign featured a crying Native American looking at litter with the tagline, "People start pollution. People can stop it." But here's the genius part. They shifted the blame from the corporations making billions of disposable products to individual consumers. Instead of addressing the root cause, massive overproduction of throwaway packaging, they made it your fault for not disposing of it properly. This campaign was so successful that litterbug became a household term. They convinced an entire generation that pollution was a personal responsibility problem, not a corporate accountability problem. But the real masterstroke came in the late 1980s. The plastic industry was facing serious threats. Cities were banning plastic bags, foam containers were getting restricted, and public pressure was mounting for real change. So they doubled down on recycling. I found the smoking gun documents. Internal memos from the Society of the Plastics Industry literally strategizing about how to use recycling as a PR shield. One memo from 1989 reads, "The success of recycling does not depend on recovery of materials. Success depends on maintaining the public's perception that recycling works." Read that again. They didn't care if recycling actually worked. They just needed people to believe it worked. They spent millions promoting recycling programs they knew would fail, because it bought them time and social license to keep producing more plastic. Every recycling campaign was basically an advertising campaign for more consumption. And here's how deep this goes. They even influenced environmental groups. Greenpeace, the Sierra Club, and other organizations that should have been fighting plastic production instead became cheerleaders for recycling. The industry funded their recycling education programs. It's like the tobacco industry funding lung cancer awareness campaigns while telling everyone that light cigarettes were the solution. The oil companies were especially clever about this. ExxonMobil, Shell, and others funded recycling research and facilities, but here's the catch. They designed them to fail. They knew the economics didn't work. They knew the technology wasn't there. But every failed recycling plant became proof that we need better recycling, not that we need less plastic. Meanwhile, they were ramping up plastic production like crazy. Since 1990, plastic production has more than doubled, but recycling rates have barely budged. We're literally drowning in plastic while arguing about better recycling bins. And the craziest part? We bought it completely. Recycling became this moral imperative, this thing that made us feel good about our consumption. Got a problem with waste? Just recycle more. Want to buy that unnecessary plastic gadget? It's okay, you'll recycle it. They turned environmentalism into a marketing strategy for more consumption. But wait, there's more. Remember how I said less than 9% of plastic gets recycled? Well, for decades, the industry has been using a different number. They claim 30 to 35% recycling rates. How? They count plastic that gets collected for recycling, not plastic that actually becomes new products. So when your recycling gets shipped to Malaysia and dumped in a river, they still counted it as recycled because it left an American facility. Now here's where this story gets really dark, because the recycling scam isn't just hurting Americans. We've been exporting our garbage problems to some of the poorest countries in the world. For almost 30 years, the United States shipped most of its recyclable waste to China. And I mean massive amounts. At the peak, we were sending 16 million tons of waste to China every year. That's like shipping 160 aircraft carriers worth of trash across the Pacific annually. China took our waste because they could use some of it in their manufacturing, and because we paid them to take it. But here's what nobody talks about. Most of what we sent wasn't actually recyclable. It was contaminated, mixed, or just plain garbage that we labeled as recycling to make ourselves feel better. Chinese workers were literally sorting through American trash with their bare hands, breathing toxic fumes, just so we could pretend our recycling bins meant something. But in 2018, China said, enough. They implemented something called Operation National Sword. Basically, they stopped taking our trash. And the whole house of cards came tumbling down. Suddenly, recycling facilities across America had nowhere to send their materials. Markets collapsed overnight. Cities that had been shipping their recycling to China for decades were stuck with warehouses full of waste nobody wanted. So what happened to all that recycling? Well, a lot of it went straight to American landfills. Some got incinerated. And the rest? We found new countries to dump on. Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. These countries suddenly saw massive increases in American waste imports. But here's the thing. They don't have China's infrastructure. Most of this waste ends up in illegal dumping sites, burned in open pits, or washed into rivers and oceans. I found footage from investigative journalists in Malaysia showing mountains of American plastic waste. You can literally read English labels on bottles and containers, just rotting in tropical heat, leaching chemicals into groundwater. We've been poisoning Southeast Asia with our recycling guilt. And the best part? American recycling companies were making money on both ends. They charged American cities to collect the recycling, then they charged the receiving countries to take it. It was basically a global money laundering scheme for waste. But even after Operation National Sword exposed this whole system, nothing really changed. The recycling industry just got better at hiding where our waste goes. There are companies right now that will take your plastic waste, ship it to a facility in Turkey or Indonesia, and as long as it gets processed somehow, even if it's just shredded and dumped, they count it as recycled. The paperwork says, recycled. The company gets their environmental credits, and everyone feels good about themselves. Meanwhile, beaches in the Philippines are covered with American plastic bottles. And here's the really sick part. Some of these countries are now shipping waste back to us because they can't handle it. We're literally playing international hot potato with garbage, and calling it environmental policy. The whole thing is so absurd that the Basel Convention, that's the international treaty governing hazardous waste, had to be amended specifically because of plastic waste dumping. Most developed countries agreed to restrictions on waste exports, but guess which country refused to sign? The United States. We're literally the only major developed nation that won't agree to stop dumping our recycling problems on poorer countries. But here's what really gets me angry. While all this was happening, while American communities were getting charged more and more for recycling services that don't work, while we were poisoning rivers in Asia with our waste, the plastic industry was running ads about how recycling was saving the planet. They turned environmental destruction into feel-good marketing. Every reduce, reuse, recycle campaign was cover for increase, consume, export the problem. Every recycling bin was basically a guilt washing station for a completely unsustainable system. And the craziest part? Most Americans still don't know this. We're still sorting our recycling, still believing we're making a difference, while the system we're feeding literally makes environmental problems worse. Okay, so I've spent the last 15 minutes completely destroying your faith in recycling, and you're probably thinking, great, so nothing matters and we're all doomed. But hold on. That's not the whole story. Some recycling actually works beautifully. The problem is that the stuff that works gets lumped in with the stuff that doesn't, and that confusion is exactly what the plastic industry wants. Let me break down the recycling that actually makes sense. Aluminum cans are recycling superstars. About 70% of aluminum cans get recycled, and here's the beautiful part. They can be recycled infinitely without losing quality. That Coke can you drink today could become another Coke can in 60 days. It takes 95% less energy to recycle aluminum than to make it from scratch, so there's a huge economic incentive to do it right. Steel and iron recycling works great too. About 80% of steel gets recycled because, again, it's profitable. Your old car becomes new cars, your soup cans become construction materials. The infrastructure exists because the economics make sense. Paper recycling? It's complicated but mostly good. Paper can be recycled 5 to 7 times before the fibers break down too much, and about 38% of paper actually gets recycled into new paper products. The infrastructure exists, the demand is there, and it genuinely reduces the need for cutting down forests. But here's the key difference. All of these materials have strong secondary markets. Companies actually want recycled aluminum, steel, and paper because it's cheaper and easier than making new materials. Plastic? There's almost no market for recycled plastic because new plastic is so cheap to produce. When oil prices are low, virgin plastic costs less than recycled plastic. So even when plastic recycling works technically, it doesn't work economically. And that brings me to the real solutions that nobody talks about because they threaten powerful industries. Solution number 1. Extended producer responsibility. This is already working in Europe. Basically, companies that make packaging have to pay for the entire life cycle of that packaging, including disposal. Suddenly, they have massive incentives to design packaging that actually can be recycled, or better yet, packaging that doesn't exist at all. When Coca-Cola has to pay the real cost of cleaning up every bottle they produce, they get really creative about alternatives really fast. Solution number 2. Deposit systems that actually work. You know those bottle deposits you pay in some states? They work incredibly well. Return rates are often above 90%. But the plastic industry fights deposit systems everywhere because they make the true cost of disposable packaging visible to consumers. Solution number 3. Banning the worst offenders. Single-use plastic bags, foam containers, plastic straws. This stuff serves no purpose that can't be handled better with alternatives. But every time a city tries to ban plastic bags, the industry swoops in with lawsuits and lobbying, claiming that recycling is the solution. Solution number 4. Design for circularity. This is the big one. Instead of designing products to be thrown away and hoping recycling will save us, we design products to last forever or to break down safely. Think about it. Your smartphone is designed to break in 2 to 3 years and contains materials that can't be separated for recycling. That's not an accident, that's planned obsolescence. But companies like Fairphone are proving you can make electronics designed for repair and upgrade. Patagonia builds clothes designed to last decades. Interface makes carpet tiles designed to be completely circular. When they wear out, they become new carpet tiles. The technology exists. The know-how exists. What doesn't exist is the economic incentive to use it. And that's because we've been sold this myth that individual recycling behavior will solve systemic problems. It's like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon while someone's adding water with a fire hose. The real solution isn't better recycling. It's less stuff that needs to be recycled. But here's what you can actually do that makes a difference. Stop buying unnecessary plastic stuff. Choose products with less packaging. Support companies that design for durability instead of disposability. And most importantly, stop feeling guilty about recycling wrong and start getting angry about a system designed to fail. Let me bring this all together because I know I just threw a lot of heavy information at you. Here's what we've learned today. Recycling isn't just failing. It was designed to fail. Less than 9% of plastic ever gets recycled, and the recycling symbol was literally created by the oil industry to confuse you into thinking you were helping. The whole system was a massive PR campaign to shift responsibility from corporations producing billions of tons of throwaway packaging onto individual consumers who were just trying to do the right thing. You've been guilted into believing that your recycling habits could solve problems created by some of the most powerful industries on Earth. We discovered that for decades, America solved its recycling problem by shipping it to China and other countries, where most of it ended up poisoning communities and waterways. When China stopped taking our trash, the whole system collapsed, proving it was never really recycling at all. But we also learned that some recycling actually works great. Aluminum, steel, and paper recycling succeed because they make economic sense. The difference is simple: profitable recycling works, unprofitable recycling doesn't. And here's the thing that really gets me. While we've been arguing about recycling bins and feeling guilty about our individual choices, plastic production has doubled since 1990. We've been solving the wrong problem. The real solutions exist. Make companies responsible for their packaging waste, implement deposit systems that work, ban the worst single-use items, and design products for circularity instead of disposability. But these solutions threaten billion-dollar industries that have spent 50 years convincing us that recycling our individual bottles is the answer to the waste crisis. So here's my challenge for you. Stop feeling guilty about recycling and start getting angry about being lied to. The next time someone tells you that you need to recycle better, remind them that the problem isn't consumer behavior. It's a system designed to make environmental destruction feel like environmental progress. Here's what I want you to do right now. First, share this video with everyone you know, because this information needs to get out there. Most people are still living with recycling guilt, and they deserve to know the truth. Second, the next time you're about to buy something wrapped in plastic, ask yourself, do I really need this, or am I just planning to recycle the packaging to feel better about it? And third, start demanding better from the companies you support. Choose businesses that design for durability, minimal packaging, and real sustainability. Not just recycling theater. The recycling scam only works if we keep believing in it. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And once enough people see the truth, we can finally start building systems that actually work. What's the most shocking thing you learned today? Drop a comment and let me know. I read every single one. And if you want more deep dives into the lies we've been told about environmental issues, make sure you're subscribed because I'm just getting started. The truth is out there, and it's time we stopped recycling lies.